guys, how's it going? Kevin Clear here with a first impressions video for you on a Reate knife. Now, this is going to be a pretty interesting knife. So I'm going to, this video I will be probably a little longer than most of my first impressions because there's a fair bit to actually cover here. Before we get to the knife itself, though, I do want to show you what came in the box, because unlike what normally happens when you get a knife, you'll get this pouch, and inside the pouch you'll kind of find all the goodies. But in this case, in this white box, there was a bunch of stuff. Okay, so we've got a little morale patch there, microfiber cloth, and then when I saw this bag and I was like, what is in here? So I didn't realize that this was going to ship. I knew the comb blade replacement was an option, but I didn't know that it was going to ship with the knife. Okay, so let's get that out of the way, bring the pouch back here. There's one more thing I want to show you here before we get to the knife itself, and that is a bag of replacement hardware, which is nice to see. Reate seems like they've maybe gone back and forth a little bit on this. I've gotten some that have replacement hardware and some that don't. Maybe it's just if you buy a knife from Reate, it'll have it, and then other collaborations may not. Anyway, whatever the case may be, it's nice to see that extra hardware come with that, and you've got some washers in there, as well as a bunch of titanium screws in varying lengths. And finally, here is the knife itself. So most of you will know this is a Reate Jack 2.0. We did take a look at the Jack 1 on this channel earlier. Just kind of going to give you guys a once over so you can kind of get an idea of the look of the knife initially. And then we'll back up and kind of talk about the various features that we've got here. So of course, before you even open the knife, you right away notice that this is an integral milled titanium clip, carbon fiber, and this, of course, is Flame TI. Now, there are a number of variants of this knife, so I went back and forth, honestly, between the carbon fiber and the micarta. With micarta, I wouldn't have gone with Flame TI. I would have gone with the plain titanium, but in the carbon fiber with the Flame, I thought it was a nice combination. Now, let's move on from the handle very quickly here. So we've got an integral handle. This one happens to be carbon fiber. There's also micarta. Now let's move up here to the perhaps most interesting part of the knife, and that is this removable blade. So we've got M390 steel here, beautiful hand rub satin finish on this blade that if you remove these screws will just detach itself from the spine. All right, now that means the spine is actually what's moving, all right, when you open and close the knife. And perhaps some of you are already thinking, well, Kevin, that's kind of a problem because you don't really want a pivot construction that is primarily titanium. And that's true. So what they've done here, if you take all these screws out and lift this off, okay, there's kind of layers here, but you'll find a washer and some bearings. And then inside this titanium, there's an actual piece, and you can take a look. Hold on, let me get this to focus. You can take a look right there at what would normally be the blade tang. That's actually part of an internal piece of M390 that's inserted in here so that the pivot works properly, so that it's made of steel and it's steel riding on the bearings rather than titanium, which is kind of interesting. I will do a full takedown on this knife because it's a really interesting knife that I think is worth kind of exploring what's going on here. And I'll either do that takedown as part of the review or a separate video. It depends on the length of time and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to make the review, 35 minutes long. If I if I record my takedown and it just takes me a long time, I'll make it a separate video, okay? But I will do one because there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening with the construction of this particular knife. It does have a stainless steel lock bar insert, which is what we like to see. And then, of course, a whole bunch of screws. Notice no screws in the scale here on the show side, but there are screws in the scale on the non-show side, what we normally think of as the lock side, on these sort of, whether you call these overlays or scales or what, I guess they're more overlays and this is frame-ish lock, I guess. Milled titanium clip, I may have already mentioned that, but if you lift this scale off or you lift this overlay off, you'll find two holes that you can reach through and access the screws that are holding this scale on. So kind of an interesting way that they've achieved this look. All right, so I think I've pretty well covered all of the features in terms of how this is built and what components are going on and what kind of interesting construction processes that are being used. Maybe for the rest of the review, I'll pop this little lock replacement out, or I mean blade replacement out, and set it here so that you can kind of be aware that it exists. The next thing I want to talk about is size and weight. So this is a fairly large knife, but it's not enormous. It's a little smaller than the Jack 1. This guy is 8 3/4 inches overall, so 8 3/4 inches overall. 3 11/16 on the blade. Okay, 5-inch handle, so the closed length on this is going to be 5 inches. 4 inches of grip area. So from here to here, we've got 4 inches. Quite a generous spot for your hand here. There is a nice finger choil, which I do rather enjoy. You guys know I'm a fan of finger choils. And the weight on this is a fairly comfortable 4.6 ounces, which compared to the previous gen, the Jack 1.0 was very, very heavy. I think even the light version was 7 or 8 ounces and the heavy one was like 12 ounces. So this guy coming in at 4.6 ounces is very, very nice. Now, I want to talk just a little bit about my thoughts on this knife, okay? First of all, it's very, very impressive. And as a knife nerd, I'm blown away by this. I love the little details. I love the way that they achieved this pivot here. Remember, with an integral frame lock, the pivot becomes a bit of a challenge. You've got to find a way to get everything in there. And they've done that, I think, in a way that's really, really effective and pretty unique. I love the option of, removing this blade. I guess if you are really bad at sharpening, this might be an appealing knife for you. You can use it till it's dull, take it off, and put a new one on, although these blades don't come super cheap and they're not widely available at this point, although I'm told they're actually going to be some variants that are available. And right now I think there may already be a Damascus or Timascus or something, maybe a Damascus or something like that available, and there may even be other blade shapes coming out. Now, this is not going to be the knife that appeals widely to, the guy who's looking for a great EDC knife, even a high-end EDC knife, right? The market for, let's say, something like this, and normally I don't bring in too many comparisons in a first impressions, but I want to kind of speak a little bit to who this is for. So the person who really loves this knife may actually despise this knife, because while this is very high-end and expensive, it's definitely meant to be used and carried and really to take a beating. Now, this knife, because of the number of parts, because of the number of details, the finishes, all of that, this is not what I would call a super EDCable blade. This is more a pocket jewelry collection type of piece. Okay, so there's lots of crazy detail, and Reate is really showing off here what they can do, and what they've done is really, really incredible. I've got to say that, and I get a lot of pride of ownership from this, and a lot of joy just in holding it and flipping it and checking it out, and even sharing with you guys is a lot of fun. But this is, if someone said to me, Kevin, I want a really good high-end folder to to carry every day, or something that I can use and hand down to my grandkids or something like this, I'm not likely to recommend this. Okay, this is more for a collector. It's more for a hobbyist and enthusiast. And as that kind of knife, it really is fantastic. It's a very, very cool knife. There's no question about that. But we need to kind of put it out there right away that this is not for everybody. And Reate didn't intend it to be for everybody. They have other knives that are much more broadly appealing. And for many of you watching, that's where you'd want to go. But if you like something that's really, really special, that's rather different, that most people you encounter are not going to have seen before, this is really, really an interesting piece. It's got a lot of cool details, a lot of things you're not used to seeing on a knife. And by the way, I didn't even comment, but the action on this is very, very good. So by way of conclusion here, my initial impressions are amazing high-end collector piece, amazing high-end, occasional carry type of knife, not the most practical of all EDCs. If I'm going on a little hike tomorrow, and I don't plan to bring this with me, okay? But wow, what a cool knife. And I totally, yeah, it's really, really exciting. And I'm really glad to be able to check this out and share it with you guys, and just I'm pretty excited about it. You can probably tell. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Go over to White Mountain Knives if you want one of these. I think Justin still has a few left. You can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF to save yourself a little bit of money, which is pretty cool. This is an expensive knife, so 10% is still like, I don't know, 40 some dollars, which is not that bad. All right, again, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.